Welcome to the Mini Break, your daily podcast for the biggest storylines, results, and controversies from the tennis world. Today is Thursday, January 18th, day 5 of the 2024 Australian Open, now officially in the books. This was a day to remember for tennis fans everywhere. One of those gifts we're just every so often blessed with from the tennis gods, where you have thrilling action from start to finish on a day's schedule, and that is certainly what we were gifted on day 5 of this 2024 Australian Open. Of course, it started with 3 deciding set thrillers, both Sasha Zverev and Casper Ruud requiring 5th set deciding tiebreakers to ultimately advance to round number 3. If that wasn't enough, world number 1 Iga Swiatek found herself on the brink of elimination, down double break 4-1 as well as 2-4 love 40 serving in her deciding set against Danielle Collins, yet somehow with her forehand nowhere in sight, Swiatek found a way to grind to a 3-set victory, advance to round number 3. And of course, those 3 matches were so thrilling, I had to offer an emergency podcast to all of you listeners. Felt compelled to share my reaction immediately to what were 3 outstanding matches. And certainly, again, you record a podcast like that, it's going to keep you up late at night. By the time I was done recording that, I figured, hey, might as well record my day 6 preview. I'm up anyways. There might be some good tennis to stay up for at this point. Eventually dozed off around 4 or 4:30 a.m. Eastern time when I woke up around 10 to prepare for my morning cracked interview episode. I did not expect there to still be Australian Open tennis on the television, and yet that was the precisely the case. Daniil Medvedev playing past 3 a.m. Australia time, coming back from 2 sets to love down to defeat Emil Ruusuvuori and advance to round number 3. Now, why was Medvedev forced to play so late into the night? Well, it's because the match, preceding him was decided 22-20 in their deciding set breaker, on a blink of pulling off the upset of the tournament to date. 7-6 in the third. Again, 22-20 in that 3rd set deciding breaker. She knocks off Elena Rybakina. Rybakina fighting off her first 9 match points that she faced. I believe she had 6 match points of her own in that 3rd set breaker. This one was a thriller in every sense, meaning definition of the word. And again, that's just 5 right there. 5 of the 32 singles matches we had. No, is that correct? Yeah, 32 singles matches we had throughout the course of day number 5's action. And of course, what did I do to prepare so all you listeners would not have to? I watched highlights at the very least, the 3-minute package, 8-minute package, or the full duration of these matches from each. I've watched at least a little bit of each and every one of these 32 matches to help, again, keep you listeners up to date in case you weren't able to stay up late, weren't able to keep up with everything that unfolded. As always, I want to tackle all 32 of those results on today's show. I do want to point out, I'm well aware, yesterday's episode not posted on YouTube. We did have some technical difficulties. That will happen in week 1 of any new content exercise, but we do believe we will have this episode posted for you on YouTube on Thursday. And I am telling you, come check out our recently renovated Cracked Racquets studio. Daniel Westoff has done a superb job. On top of super producer, he might just be interior decorator as well. And again, we're really proud of our work. We're really excited to expand our YouTube portfolio of content, hopefully grow our audience there, as well as provide you listeners a new avenue to enjoying your podcast experience, whether it is continuing to listen via these episodes, which will still be posted every day, or whether it is to come watch us, join us on YouTube, if that is your preferred platform of choice. Again, we're going to start posting these episodes moving forward, so be sure to check them out and be sure to subscribe to our Cracked Racquets YouTube channel, where you can watch our first 3 college tennis broadcasts of the 2024 season. We are going to be parked in Stillwater, Oklahoma, to watch the Oklahoma State men and women kick off their 2024 campaigns. The Oklahoma State men taking on a perennial top 25 school in Middle Tennessee. The Oklahoma State women get a top 5 showdown in their opening match Friday Fridays, they're going to take on Michigan. That match coming right after the men's match. And then Sunday, they take on a top 15 opponent in Ohio State. Again, fantastic college tennis to kick off our 2024 coverage. We hope you'll join us. Obviously, these matches happening during the day here in the United States when there is no Australian Open action for it to conflict with. So be sure to come get your tennis fix during the day. Come join us. Come enjoy the college tennis world. Again, broadcast Friday, Sunday. Rest assured, we will still have podcasts for you recapping all of the action in Australia on those days. Whether we'll be able to post them or videos or not, I suppose, depends on A, my mood, B, if Daniel Westhoff has any energy left in his tank as well. So not sure if we'll have videos this weekend. We will certainly continue to have podcasts for you as we continue to enjoy what has been a thrilling first major to date of this 2024 season. And with that in mind, again, I want to break down all 32 results from day number 5 for all of you listeners. Of course, I am going to provide some organization as always. I've enjoyed sticking with this theme of offering you the headlines to start every day. And I do want to point out, again, there's an emergency podcast on all things Swiatek, Zverev, Ruud, so I'm going to steer away from those matches here on this particular show, but you can go listen to that emergency episode to catch up on those action. That action. I will play a little bit of cleanup on those matches here on today's show, but I've got 5 headlines for all of you listeners. First and foremost, we got to obviously get into the tactics, the thriller that was that Medvedev 5-set marathon. How frequently has he been able to overcome a 2-set-to-love deficit in his career? I will answer that question for all of you listeners today. And then let's get into the upsets. Again, Rybakina had 6 match points, fought off the first 9 she faced, yanks a backhand approach wide on the 10th. Ayana Blinkova, the 25-year-old from Russia, pulls off the upset and victory of her career. We'll get into the mechanics of that win, whether you need to hit the panic button if you're a Rybakina fan. What about Jessica Pegula? I think you might have to hit the panic button after her first month in Australia. It wasn't just the fact that she lost the match to Clara Burel in straight sets. It was a concerning month overall. Again, just the gravitas, the weight of shot for Jessica Pegula didn't seem to be there all month long. It certainly wasn't there yesterday against Clara Burel. We'll break down her loss and, again, give a quick look at where she goes from here following a disappointing first month of 2024. After that, again, the men's seeds, I don't know how they do it, but they have continued to survive. I believe men's seeds 14-3 overall in 5-set matches through the first 2 rounds of play. That said, we did have our first top 16 upset in the men's singles draw. Holger Rune knocked out of this event, so we'll get into all of that. We'll look at the players who have thrived this month: Alina Svitolina, Emma Navarro, Linda Noskova amongst them. And then we'll clean up some of the other things you might have missed. Obviously, someone like Anna Kalinskaya, not going to get the headlines. She has carried her exceptional form to end 2023 into the start of 2024. If you listen to our draw previews, you knew I liked her chances coming into this event. Everything's broken perfectly for her. We'll get into that storyline. Some American upsets. You had Sloane Stephens, Alex Mickelson doing impressive things. Obviously, again, want to follow up on those Iga, Ruud, Zverev matches, having gone back. Watch the highlights from them now. We got a jam-packed show, as this was the day this Australian Open became the Australian Open, became the first major event of the year, right? It felt like this was the day that had, I'm going to use this word again, the gravitas, the, as I like to say in my culture, chutzpah, to really entice not just tennis fans, but perhaps even sporting fans more broadly, particularly here in the United States. You wake up, you see Daniil Medvedev is still playing in Australia. What time is it there? Thrilling finish to day 5. That matched the vibes, dare I say, of the entirety of the day's event. So we'll get into all of that. A thank you to all of you listeners, viewers who are tuning in, whether it be on the podcast platform or our YouTube channel. It's why we do this day in, day out. It's because we want to keep you the most educated, best informed fans in the business, and we appreciate you trusting us to do that. So we'll continue to have content for you, even as our broadcast schedule picks up here in 2024. Also, of course, if you're looking for daily previews, the Great Shot podcast feed is the place for you. We won't have those as videos, but we will have those previews up and through the quarterfinal round of this event. So if you want to look at every day's schedule, you want my thoughts on the matches you won't want to miss, the ones you're going to have to go back, check the highlights from, etc. Check out those Great Shot podcast episodes each and every day, wherever it is you listen to your podcasts on the Great Shot podcast feed. Last but certainly not least, a thank you to the support we get from our dear friends at Tennis Point for the latest and greatest equipment at the best prices. There's only one location to turn to, tennis-point.com. Make sure you use our promo code CR15 for all of your purchases. You'll get 15% off all sale items, free 2-day shipping on all orders exceeding $75. Best of all, a free can of Wilson Extra Duty tennis balls. Tennis-point, symbol, not the spelling. Tennis-point.com. The promo code is CR15. All right, let's talk headlines from day number 5 of this 2024 Australian Open. Again, what was a thrilling day of tennis from start to finish. Let's start at the end of it. We're all going to remember when we look at this back at this day, the fact that Daniil Medvedev was playing tennis past 3 a.m. I think it was an official 3:34 a.m. finish for Daniil Medvedev. Slightly earlier than last year's finish between Andy Murray, Thanasi Kokkinakis, but in the running for latest finish in Australian Open history. And why did this match ultimately go past 3 a.m.? Well, it's because Daniil Medvedev was down 2-0. Emil Ruusuvuori came out so disciplined, so assertive in employing a clear-cut game plan, which was, look, I'm going to take advantage of the space you give me, Daniil, and I'm not going to rush any attempt from the baseline. If you want to make it a 10, 15-shot rally until ultimately you get a little undisciplined, Daniil, you leave something short for me, Emil Ruusuvuori in this instance, to step inside the baseline, and his ability to open up a inside-in forehand from the ad side with his inside-out, inside-out, inside-in combination. It's an elite combination. I have made this comparison for Emil Ruusuvuori before, so I apologize for repeating it to long-time listeners. I think Coke is to Diet Coke as Jannik Sinner is to Emil Ruusuvuori. His weapon, particularly on the forehand wing, is that caliber of exceptional. And his ability, whenever Medvedev, who, again, with his extreme forehand grip, when he tries to pull a ball cross court, that ball will sit up, pop up, shoulder height for Ruusuvuori. His ability to drive through that ball, bunt down on that ball, redirect that ball down the line, it's why he was able to be the aggressor in the biggest moments through the first 2 sets, because Daniil Medvedev could put up a wall and say, again, try and hit through me or try and get around me, do whatever it is you want to do. And Emil Ruusuvuori said, okay, let me get my ladder on this point. I'm going to climb over you on this one. Or actually, I'm just going to go the long route, and I'm just going to wait patiently until you get uncomfortable, and then I'm going to snap through my forehand or until you make a mistake in the course of a rally. Ruusuvuori was immensely disciplined, and you look for him throughout the course of this match. Yes, 50 winners ultimately against 74 unforced errors. Those first 2 sets in particular, he made just, again, 34 of those 74 unforced errors, 23 in the second set against 15 winners. But that's a pretty good ratio when you're playing someone, again, as physical or as, again, someone who stresses rally tolerance so significantly as a part of his attacking game style as a Daniil Medvedev. And look, Medvedev was relentless. Medvedev was moving well. I thought he was serving pretty well throughout the course of this match. Though set number 2 in particular, I think his first serve went off a cliff, and the stats seem to indicate that was the case, 49% overall in that second set. But again, it was a credit to Emil Ruusuvuori, who whenever he got to look at a second serve, depth into the Daniil Medvedev body, or if he got to look at an outside forehand, take that forehand down the line, snap it cross. He changed out his spot so well. Ruusuvuori was so disciplined and again, so patient in displaying his elite weaponry. And then when that opportunity came, he snapped on it. He took it. Obviously, again, able to have some success, certainly beating Medvedev to the spot in those first 2 sets. And look, again, it's a credit to Daniil Medvedev that he didn't completely quit, completely fold, say, you know what, it's after 1 a.m., I'm down 2-0. You look for Medvedev in his career coming into this match. He was 4-9 in deciding sets overall in his career, 2-15 when he had gone down 2-0. His last victory coming down 2-0 in Australia back in the 2022 quarterfinal against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Again, he was 2-15 in this scenario, down 2-0, and this scenario was happening at 1 a.m. on a Thursday night for Daniil Medvedev, and yet somehow or on a Friday morning, Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever you want to say, and yet some freaking how Medvedev finds a way to grind his way back. It's an early break, never lets it go, to take that third set 6-4. Fourth set was a grind, and Medvedev gets up an early break. You think, okay, he's got it, right? Rusevori's going to go away physically. It was a great first 2 hours, but he's not going to be able to sustain this for hour 3. He's not going to be able to sustain this as we approach hour 4. That was not the case, at least through that third and a half hour of play, as Rusevori broke back 4-4 all. He manages to hold 4-5-4, Medvedev throwing his racket in disgust, and you think to yourself, oh my God, is Rusevori going to get this? Has Medvedev given all he can give, and now he's going to crack, and this is Rusevori's moment to swing freely? Nope. Daniil Medvedev steps right back up to the line, and you look for Daniil Medvedev, despite making just 59% of his first serves in this match, he hit 23 aces in this match. I mean, that's a pretty good number for the 6'6" Russian. Obviously, the fact that of those 23 aces, only 3 of them came in a 6-love fifth set where it was just clear Rusevori did not have any gas left in the tank, had no juice moving in and out of the outer thirds. Medvedev was just getting him stretched in ways that Medvedev pace had previously not been hurting Rusevori, at least consistently through the first 3.5-4 sets. It's a credit to Daniil Medvedev and a firm reminder just how fit the 27-year-old is, even when the tennis isn't its prettiest. Best of 5 on this surface when he moves so well and will just make the match a track meet, if nothing else, and then throw 23 aces at you as well. What a grind for Daniil Medvedev. Again, now 3-15 when trailing 2-0 at the majors. Had lost his last 5 consecutively in those scenarios. He's now also 5-9 overall in deciding sets at majors. He lost the first 6 deciding sets of his career. Has now won 2 in a row with his 5th set win over Eubanks at Wimbledon. Now this 5-set win over Rusevori. And more than anything else, you look for Daniil Medvedev currently sitting at number 3 in the world. Let's remember, last season, January was not a success for Daniil Medvedev. He got knocked out, I think, third round against Sebastian Korda of this event at this event last season. Now, what did he do after that? He goes on this undefeated run in the Middle East. He has a massive Sunshine Swing, massive Indian Wells, massive Miami. And then, he wins a 1,000 level event on clay last year as well. And so there are significant chunks of points coming up for Daniil Medvedev to defend. Where does he have opportunities for just clear-cut gain? It's this Australian Open where he lost third round of this event last season. He was in jeopardy of losing earlier than that here this year, and in jeopardy of another disappointing January. And this is a guy who's made a final of the Australian Open in the past, a guy who has unequivocally earned the right to be a top-tier contender at any hard court event he has entered in, except for maybe Indian Wells, but he would argue it's not a hard court event. He grinds his way through it, finds a way. That's what Daniil Medvedev and the best players in the world do. They find a way to win. Now, again, for 3.5 hours, Emil Rusevori was playing top 20, top 15 disciplined levels of tennis. The way he can turn into his forehand, I've always said that can be a significant weapon against anyone. He has clearly gotten more fluid as a mover, even if that fluidity kind of abandoned him when he lost steam in set number 5. But again, he withstood the barrage of consistency Medvedev threw at him, stayed pretty consistent on his serve as well. You look for Daniil Medvedev throughout the course of this match. Medvedev ultimately on break points, 8 of 16, but 3 of those 8 breaks coming in that final set, 6-love. And I think he only had 3 break points in that, so he was 5 of 13 otherwise. Rusevori, to his credit, had 18 break point chances, was only able to convert 5 of them. This was a fantastic match, albeit a loss for Rusevori, but just a stark reminder. Was it last year, 2 years ago, where did he play? It was either Tsitsipas, Rublev, or FAA who he pushed to 5 sets in round number 1 and wasn't able to get through that one either. But again, on a hard court, the 24-year-old from Finland plays top 35 level tennis when he is healthy and at his best, at the very least. And shout out to John Wertheim. This was a funny joke. He talked about the late Finnish. That's now his nationality after a result like that. That was pretty funny. I giggled. Look, again, Emil Rusevori, we've seen that archetype before. Big serve, can dictate with the forehand, pretty smooth changing direction off both wings, good, not great mover. We've seen that archetype. That player has a spot in the top 25. what makes Daniil Medvedev so consistently special is you just don't see anyone quite like him. Obviously, the octopus nickname and alluding to the long levers his arms, his legs possess, and that ability to extend rallies with those levers. Again, such a good mover for a guy that size, so fluid, such a powerful first step in moving into the court as well. Sneaky powerful. Like, you forget how low, flat, drivey that backhand stays on you, and that's what made that Ruusuvuori performance so impressive, is that he stayed disciplined enough to have success against that relentlessness of the Daniil Medvedev ball. And remember, it's so low, it's so steady on the backhand wing, and then it's this Yankee forehand with all sorts of action coming your way. Of course, then he'll pancake flatten one out down the line. Of course, on top of that, he's 6'6" and can throw 130 bombs at you off the serve. So again, I'm not going to quite say one of one, because there are some similarities between he and Zverev. Not many, but some. But again, what a win. What a nightcap. I think the match ended like 11:30 a.m. or 11:15 a.m.-ish, something like that, or roughly. Again, it ended after 10 a.m. Eastern time and after 3 a.m. Australian time. It was a headline. It kind of, again, was the perfect feather in the cap of what was a day of madness at the 2024 Australian Open. And, of course, that madness is perhaps best epitomized by the fact that we lost 2 top 5 seeds in the women's draw yesterday. 2 top 5 seeds. And keep in mind, we've lost 20 of 32 seeds overall through the first 2 rounds of play in the women's singles draw. Just 12 seeds remaining as we approach round number 3. Not the second week, not the round of 16, no. 12 seeds remaining as 32 players still remain in this draw. Obviously, the biggest shocker, yes, the Pegula loss, the fashion in which she lost was perhaps more pronounced, but 22-20 in a third set breaker. Elena Rybakina ultimately falling to 25-year-old Anna Blinkova. And the most memorable of the 6 match points for Elena Rybakina to me will be the point she had at 18-17. It was a match point that she had on serve. I believe she had a couple on serve. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3. Blame the lack of sleep again. How could you not be sleeping late in my position, lacking sleep in my position, given how exciting this tennis is, the privilege to cover it. I'm going to stay up late, get up early, try to watch it all so I can talk about it for you listeners. 18-17, Rybakina hits a quality serve. She has Blinkova on a string and hit 2 particular forehands that had Blinkova stretched not just at the alley, but stretched outside the alley on that deuce side of the court. And I really do wonder if Rybakina had chosen to move forward behind either of those forehands. I think Blinkova might have obviously changed her shot selection, tried to beat you to the spot, but make her take an aggressive swing in that moment. Make her come up with something elite, exceptional from a defensive position. Instead, again, Rybakina elects not to move forward. Eventually, Blinkova on an on-the-run backhand able to generate enough depth that it caught Rybakina kind of in no man's land. She was kind of hinting forward, but wasn't making the committed full move forward on this 18-17 point. Ultimately, she elects to hit this little half-volley backhand drop shot-esque shot that Blinkova tracks down. Really nice on-the-run cross-court flick of the wrist from Blinkova. That, to Rybakina's credit, she got a racket on. She got a forehand volley on, and it was the most difficult of forehand volleys. She almost made it. That volley into the net. It's now 18-all. I think the 19-18 match point she had, she sailed a pretty routine forehand as well, but the 18-17 point was on her serve, and she had definitive forehands to move in behind or try to end things with, and again, got a little bit tentative in that moment. The 25-year-old Blinkova, much like we saw earlier in the day with Lucas Klein and Max Purcell and their pursuit of upsets, she just was so willing to swing freely in this match. And you look for Anna Blinkova, 28 winners against 48 unforced errors, but that's indicative of the fact that when she saw ball, she hit ball big, took her cuts, understood, hey, I either go down swinging or I go down in this match. And then when things tightened up in the third, she was willing to grind a little bit more. Obviously, she tightened up herself. She served for this match, I believe, up 6-5, had 2 or 3, I think it was 3 match points in that 6-5 either. I believe it was the service game. Ultimately, Rybakina able to, again, force a deciding breaker. And at that point, again, you thought Rybakina had it. Certainly, going into that 18-17 point, Rybakina with a match point on the serve, you just thought, okay, this is the moment. She's yanking her around the court. This is the moment where Blinkova, I apologize for the pun, Blinkova blinks. 25-year-old never did, and it's by far the biggest victory of her career, her third against a top 10 opponent. She beat Caroline Garcia in the round of 64 at Roland Garros last year, went over Bencic and Shenzhen back in 2020. You look for Blinkova, she is into the third round of a major for the fourth time in her career, but here's the big number. Blinkova into the third round of a major for the third time in the last four majors. She did it at Roland Garros. She did it at Wimbledon. Now she does it here at the Australian Open as well. Will have her easiest opponent to date. Of those 4 round of 3 matches, she's faced Sabalenka, Svitolina, and Madison Keys. I think you'd take Jasmine Paolini as a third round opponent over any of those names. Blinkova was brave. She was bold. She was willing to go down swinging. There was another point. I forget if I think Blinkova, she was either down match point or it was 20-all. I think this was the 20-all point, or it was a match point Rybakina. Either way, no, because I think it was on the ad side. So I'm going to say it was a match point Rybakina. I'm not sure. But Blinkova moves forward behind a good serve, a good +1 ball. Rybakina skies up a lob. Blinkova hits a decisive overhead put-away to win the point. To do that when it is past 18-all in a third set deciding tiebreak against last year's Australian Open finalist and the number 3 overall seed, it just speaks to, again, the brave, bold, swing freely, play on your own terms and go down at least with a smile on your face nature that Blinkova, that ethos that she brought to the court yesterday. Again, what a signature victory for the 25-year-old. Her third in her career against a top 10 opponent, and with a win, she's back into the top 50, up to number 48 in the live rankings as a result. Obviously, on the flip side for Rybakina, look, it's tough because she beat Sabalenka so definitively in that Brisbane final match in week number 1. And to show that level against Sabalenka and not walk away with at least a semifinal appearance at the Australian Open before maybe a loss to Iga. Like, you could live with a loss to Iga in the semifinals, even if she didn't ultimately make the finals and win the title here in Melbourne. To lose to a player ranked outside the top 50 when you had 6 match points, and a couple of those match points you really like back because you certainly gave some loose errors to Blinkova. I mentioned this earlier, by the way, on match point. Rybakina had a routine backhand approach shot that she got tight while hitting. That's going to happen at that stage in that moment of a match. I have made that exact same error in my life where you get a little handsy, your racket speed slows down, and you don't accelerate through the shot. And when you don't accelerate, again, that's why that ball is going to drift long or wide on you, as it did for Rybakina. It's a crushing loss, just, again, given the level she displayed in week number 1 of this season. If she had captured that Sabalenka level, the level she played in that Sabalenka match in a bottle, and managed to drink from that bottle all tournament long, she probably is winning this event. That is how good she looked in that Love 6-3 victory over Sabalenka. It was untouchable power tennis, but obviously, again, for Sabalenka, bitter disappointment for her to drop this match. Obviously, she's going to fall to number 5 in the world following this result. Even with Pegula's loss, Pegula's still going to jump her, be at that number 4 spot. Coco Gauff now sitting at the number 3 spot. I mean, again, long-term, 3, 5, doesn't really matter. Rybakina gets to do whatever she wants from a scheduling perspective. Still plenty of points for her to keep her ranking suspended in this first third of the season in the top 10. Obviously, the big Indian Wells title defense coming up as well. That was just, again, she had her chances. She had her moments. Blinkova played inspiring tennis. I don't want to take anything away from her. That's going to be a tough one for Elena Rybakina to swallow. Just didn't quite have enough, particularly, again, having those momentum, fighting off the match points, heading into that third set breaker. You thought it would be hers. I think she was down 9-7, though, in that third set breaker, to her credit, to extend things to 10-all. Again, this match was funky. Like, it had it all. 22-20. It's why Medvedev was playing till 3:30 a.m. It's what will make Day 5 such a memorable day as we look back at this Australian Open. The day this major became a major event. Certainly, again, Elena Rybakina was my third highest contender. I had 4 players in Tier 1. Swiatek, then Sabalenka, then Rybakina, then Coco Gauff as my Tier 1 contenders in the women's singles draw. Obviously, we've seen 20 upsets of the 32 seeds, but Rybakina was the first Tier 1 player I've seen knocked off my list. I also had my first Tier 2 player knocked off the list. I still have 6 of my top 8 as we approach the round of 32. I feel pretty good about that big picture, but we lost a Tier 2 player in Jessica Pegula, the 5th seed, knocked out in straight sets, 6-4, 6-2. And what was most notable about the Pegula loss, it was the fact that she was up 1-love breaks to start each of these sets and saw the sets get away from her so quickly from there. And the number 31 unforced errors to Burel's 26, that's the number that I suppose would stand out looking at the stat sheet. That's not the number that stands out to me. The number that stands out to me, Jessica Pegula, an aggressive baseliner who uses her speed so well to beat you to the spot, change direction down the line, move forward, hit the swinging volley, hit the put-away volley, hit the overhead again, use her athleticism to be aggressive with her court positioning. That Jessica Pegula, the number 5 player in the world who hasn't taken a bad loss in about 2 years, she hit 9 winners in yesterday's match against Clara Burel. And look, I've long been a fan of the 22-year-old from France who, by the way, with this win up to a new career high 49 in the live rankings. Burel moves well. It's funny. Her technique is Pliskova-esque, and she's tall, skinny, but far more fluid as a mover than Pliskova. Not nearly as powerful. I want to be clear there as well. Burel's pretty good at everything. Not great at anything. Pretty good at everything. So, of course, Pegula was always going to be tested in this match, but just 9 winners. By the end of that second set, you could tell Pegula was ready to pack the bag, start the plane, and head home. Just the peak level wasn't there for her. It hasn't been here for her all month. I know Pegula was able to get a couple of victories. Last week in Adelaide, beat a Pavlyuchenkova from a set down in 3, beat a Bernarda Pera from a set down in 3, got the win over Tomljanovic in United Cup as well. But in all of the 5 matches she had played throughout the course of the build-up to this Australian Open, I'm going to exclude the Rebecca Marino match where she actually looked like herself in round of 1 of this event. That's what was so encouraging. In the 6 other matches she's played here this first month of the season, the pace just isn't there on the ground strokes right now. The pace isn't there on the serve either. Pegula winning just 60% of her first serve points. She made just 52% of her first serves in this loss to Burel, faced 10 different break points, and so far, again, she's played 6 matches so far this season. If you don't include the withdrawal in those 6 matches, she's faced 23 plus 26 is 49 plus 13, 62 break points. Jessica Pegula has faced 62 break points through 6 matches. She's holding serve just 69.3% of the time. The average top 50 player holding serve 70.1% of the time. That is not good by Jessica Pegula standards. Again, Pegula's been over 70% each of the last 3 seasons. And, again, whether it's just straight up first serve percentage struggles, you can tell that's kind of seeping into. She doesn't feel as confident swinging freely into the +1 because the opportunities aren't as apparent, and thus every point a little bit more of a struggle in her service games. I mean, again, Clara Burel was able to play her even for the baseline. It felt like Burel was the one more frequently redirecting things down the line or taking a big cut through the court. Again, Burel 17 winners against Pegula's 9, 26 unforced errors to Pegula's 31. Pegula winning just 13 of 32 second serve points in this match. And by the way, she had to play 32 second points on her second serve compared with only 35 on her first serve. She was just always on her back foot. Again, here's the thing, and I want to keep this in mind, big picture. Here's the positive spin. Do you remember Daniil Medvedev's month of January last year? We were all hitting the panic button. Is it the run for Medvedev over? He had a really rough ending to 2022. That carried over to the immediate start of 2023, and we were all wondering, he fell out of the top 10, and all of a sudden it was like, wait a second. Is this Medvedev window closed? And then he rips off an undefeated streak in February, and then again he goes on the sunshine swing and ends the season at the U.S. Open final and a clear-cut top 5 player in the world. Jessica Pegula had 1 bad month. It's her first bad month in about 30 months. She gets a mulligan on this opening month of the season. It is worth noting the trend of her being pushed on her back foot. She's got to refine the weapons, get a little bit more comfortable swinging freely. There's no doubt about that. And if the underlying consistency isn't there, I mean, that is the thing that propels Jessica Pegula forward against so many different opponents. Is not only does she hit the ball harder than you, she hits the ball harder than you, and she makes it more consistently than you do. That gear just hasn't been there for her this first month of the season. And again, the standards we're holding her to aren't top 50 player. If you're a top 50 player, a loss to Clara Burel at this point of the 22-year-old Frenchman's career, nothing to bat an eye at. When you are a top 5 player, like Pegula has been the last 2+ years, the standards are different for you. And obviously for Pegula, she's always had the slam cloud hanging over her head as well. This is another disappointing result from her, from in that respect. And you look at this round of 32, I believe 12 of the 32 women alive still in this round of 32, age 22 or younger. Obviously, Swiatek, Goff, they're only getting better. Qin Wen, clearly she's getting better. She's into the third round here of this event. You've got the Noskovas, the Andreevas, the Fruvertovas, the Kornievas, all the young Russians in the world. There's this, Kostyuk, she's 21 years old. Anisimova's 22. She's into another third round. If she gets healthy, she's got to be in this conversation. I'm not saying Pegula's window to be a top 8, top 10 player is closed. But for her, the only thing left to do is win a major. She's won just about everything else and competed with the best in the world now for 2.5 consecutive seasons. The last hurdle for her to climb to the top of is a Grand Slam title. And just getting how competitive and how talented, how good and young this field is, that's the only panic button you're hitting, is that 30,000-foot view of can she win a slam? Because, again, her ceiling compared to the ceiling moving forward of some of these continuing to improve players, you just wonder if Pegula can continue to raise her ceiling as well. The thing that has always been her calling card is, again, the delta between ceiling and floor has always been so narrow, and her floor is so high, match in, match out, or at least has been over the last 2.5 years. We saw the floor fall out from underneath her in this match. Again, this was one of the poorer performances I have seen from Jessica Pegula in the past 2.5 years. Of one I'm sure she will want to forget. For Clara Burel, not only does she reach round 3 of a major for the 4th time in her career, first time she's done it in Australia, she reaches round 3 of a major and earns her first top 20, her first top 10 victory of her career as well. And it's funny, she's now 1-5 against the top 20. She's also 1-5 against the top 10. Every top 20 opponent she's faced in her career has also been a top 10 opponent. She's faced top 10 opponents 5 different times now at the majors. Losses twice to Sabalenka, once to Sakkari, once to Muguruza prior to this win for Jessica Pegula. And again, it's a signature victory for the 22-year-old. Dare I say the first of her career. This is a former top 5 junior in the world, someone who's really well-rounded. Again, moves well, pretty springy off of both wings. Not elite at anything, but pretty solid everywhere. Going to be a tough out moving forward. I see top 50 certainly, as her live ranking now indicates. I don't know if I see top 20 yet, top 15 if the weapons or even the totality of pretty goodness is enough to put her in that category with how many talented young players there are who you see flashes of greatness from. But Clara Burel is going to be around for the remainder of this decade and going to be in much more than 4 third rounds at the majors moving forward. Perhaps most encouragingly, if you're Burel, you've now made third rounds at back-to-back majors. Did it at the U.S. Open to end last season, now does it here in Australia. Clara Burel providing our second headline upset of the day. Again, knocking out 5th-seeded Jessica Pegula, 6-4, 6-2. The Rybakina Pegula section of the draw now wide open. And I want to be clear, the favorite to make the semifinal now unequivocally is Jung Qin Wen, the 21-year-old, 22-year-old. I keep screwing this up. It's 21-year-old. The 21-year-old from China, currently sitting at 14 in the world in the live rankings. She is a 54.1% favorite, according to Tennis Abstract. So more than half the times you play out this these third and fourth rounds moving forward, you will see Qin Wen reach the quarterfinals. And if it's a Qin Wen-Swiatek quarterfinal, whenever those two play, it's always a fun match. Even Swiatek's straight set victory over Qin Wen at United Cup was more competitive than that scoreline indicated. It's a massive moment, a massive opportunity for the 21-year-old to consolidate on her momentum. Again, she is the highest-ranked, highest-seeded player remaining, and the only other seed in her section is 26th-seeded Jasmine Paolini. When you lose Rybakina, when you lose Pegula in the same day, things open up. Again, the list of players still alive: Blinkova, Paolini, Kalinskaya, Stevens, Chinwen, Wang Yafan, Ocean Dodan, and Clara Burrell. Again, Kalinskaya is playing really good ball, but if you're Chinwen or if you are Sloane Stevens, and honestly, Paolini belongs on that list as well, like, talk about an opportunity to get your 2024 season going. So again, that section of the draw, the Rybakina quarter, now swung wide open after we get two headline upsets. Elena Rybakina, Jessica Pegula, both eliminated on day number 5. Only 3 seeds eliminated overall on the day on the women's side. Now, obviously, it felt pretty dramatic given the fact that 2 of them were top 5 seeds. I want to get into the Sloane Stevens side of things in a little bit. Let's shift gears, though, and talk about the men's side of things now, because the men's seeds just continue to find ways to survive. And yes, we had 4 seeds upset on day 5, so some of you may be laughing and saying, wait a second, Alex, 4 seeds lost on this day, and you're talking about the steadiness of the top men. Well, let's be clear. Through 5 days of play, men's single seeds are 14-3 overall in 5-set matches. Now, I know what you're going to say. Alex, they are the better players. Shouldn't the better player win out over the longer the match goes? Isn't that the whole point of best of 5, is you have to reach this insane level of physicality to sustain this ridiculous level of tennis, and that requires greatness, and that's why the best often emerge as the best at these major events. Of course, you have a lot of credibility to that argument, but have you heard the 5-set records? Daniil Medvedev now 5-9 in 5-set matches. Sasha Zverev 20-11 now, but like, that's more beatable than him in other scenarios than that. And again, I'm not going to give you the Djokovic or Nadal, Federer numbers because those are all laughable, but most people play about 500 ball in 5-set matches, and that guys like Zverev, Ruud, Medvedev pulled through in 5 sets. Obviously, from an entertainment standpoint, to have the best players in the world still alive as we move to the business end of this major, it's massive for tennis fans. It's massive for the sport in order to try and gain interest, particularly, again, if you are based here in the States, when the hours are funky and otherwise perhaps wouldn't be incentivized to follow this major in particular. But it's not just those guys. Again, we saw Fritz earn a 5-set win in round number 1. We saw Rublev earn a 5-set win in round number 1. Now you can add 2 other guys to the list of players we've mentioned already. Hubie Hurkacz surviving the test against the young, talented 18-year-old Jakub Mensik. And look, I've said it before, I'll say it again here. The weapons of Jakub Mensik, they're just real. He hit 57 winners in this match against Hubie Hurkacz, 19 aces against just 62 unforced errors. That degree of aggression against a top 10 player in his first crack at it, gumption. Like, that is just a willingness, again, getting back to this theme of Blinkova, of Purcell, of Lucas Klein. If you're playing a top 10 player, what's the point of going down anything other than swinging? You're going to lose to them if you just try to keep things ordinary. You have to try to pull off the extraordinary. You have to try and disrupt these top 10 players' comfort zone. You have to try to do something to make the match on your terms. And always, in every match that he plays, Jakub Mensik's serve, his first forehand, his confidence and willingness to move forward, they will keep him in every match that he plays. And that's what kept him alive in this match. Jakub Mensik, 60% first serve percentage. He won 75% of those points. 19 aces. Mensik, 25 of 35 at the net in this match. Here's the problem. And this is what I said coming into the match if you listen to our Great Shot podcast preview. When Mensik gets his hands on the ball, special things happen. He possesses elite power. He can generate that power from any position on the court, even if it's stretched deep in the outer third, if his feet are there and he can make solid contact with the ball. He is not comfortable when he is pushed into the outer thirds. I suppose no player, sans maybe Djokovic, is that comfortable in the outer thirds, but Mensik is not as quick as he will be 2-3 years from now. I don't think he's slow. I want to make that abundantly clear. I don't think he is slow-footed. I just think he is young. And he has had these weapons his entire life. He has always been on his front foot. He is not accustomed to facing competition who can match or even at times exceed his firepower. And thus there were moments when he passed pretty well in this match against Hubie Hurkacz. Had a few on-the-run brilliant moments, particularly in that third set. But that's where the majority of his errors come. When Hubie got him stretched in those outer thirds and Mensik, outside of his comfort zone, tried to make a little more than what was necessary in that moment happened. And again, those are the right sort of errors for an 18-year-old to be making. I have no problem with him going down swinging. I have no problem with... If you're saying about an 18-year-old he needs to get a little stronger, a little fitter, a little faster, it means you don't have concerns about his tennis. And I actually do think his backhand held up way better than I thought it would, staring down the barrel of the pace of the Hubie Hurkacz serve, of the Hubie Hurkacz flatness and drive on his backhand, on his down-the-line forehand. And Hubie, by the way, 48 winners against 34 unforced errors in this match, 19 aces, won 74 of 90 first serve points, and won over 70% of his serve points overall in this match. I believe Hubie Hurkacz was broken just twice in this one. Was broken twice. Mensik 2 of 3 on breakpoint chances compared to Hubie 7 of 21. And this gets back to the big thing. Yes, Mensik was up 2-1 in this match. No, I was never concerned that Hubie was going to lose it because physically, Mensik's not there yet to play top 10 tennis for 3.5 hours. He can play top 50 tennis for 2 hours. He can play top 25 tennis even for 30, 45-minute stretches. Like, the weapons are real. The willingness and ability to assert himself on his front foot with his serve, with his first forehand, how his body weight and his momentum is always moving into the court. That ability to be the aggressor, so essential at the highest levels of men's tennis. Again, he reminds me of a young Tsitsipas, of a young Sinner, in that it's clear he is not the mover he will be 2 to 3 years from now, but structurally I think he'll be fine. If at the very worst, a fine, maybe even a good mover at the tour once as he continues to grow into his body. Again, the technique I don't love on the backhand. I still think on the forehand side also he can get a little slap happy when pushed in the outer thirds. But the underlying skill set, I mean, this is a guy who is going to be in our lives as a top 100, top 50 player, when, not if, for 18-year-old Jakub Mensik. Really impressive performance. More impressive, again, Hubie Hurkacz now into the 7th career third round at a major for a 26-year-old who has won 2 Masters 1000 events and has been ranked top 10 in the world multiple seasons. He should be he should make more than 7 third rounds at majors in his career. And you look for Hubie overall in his career, he has played the first round of major events 23 different times. Yeah, he should have more than 7 third rounds in 23 different first-round appearances at the majors. That said, again, great start to his 2024 campaign. And again, his success came later in the year. With this run, he jumps a couple of guys. He's currently sitting at 8 in the live rankings. Casper Ruud back up to 9. Who dropped for him to get there? Rune 7, Hurkacz 8, Ruud 9. Oh, Stefano Tsitsipas obviously dropped 3 spots with last year's final run coming off of his rankings resume. Still, again, add Hurkacz to the list. Another player. And Tsitsipas has survived a couple of tough 4-setters. Djokovic, Alcaraz surviving 4-setters as well. Hurkacz, another top seed to get tested, but ultimately survive. He is now 11-8 in his career in deciding sets at the major. Has won 6 of his last 8 deciding sets as well. So starting to find a little bit of 5-set rhythm. The other guy able to survive in 5 sets as a seed. How about Cam freaking Norrie? Able to overcome a 2-sets-to-love deficit to earn a 5-set victory over the talented Italian, Giulio Zeppieri. 3-6, 6-7, 6-2, 6-4, 6-4. Norrie able to prevail, even with a little bit of knee pain and a little bit of a medical timeout hampering Norrie, I believe, in the middle of that third set. Man, Norrie is just a nightmare physically still. And again, you may have an elite weapon that's bigger than anything he brings into the court, but if you can't execute that weapon with consistency, with relentless physicality, he's going to get you. Cam Norrie ultimately able to grind his way. Kind of needed this third round to get his season going. Cam Norrie right now sitting at 22 in the live rankings and has a 500-level title coming off of his resume from February of last year when he won on the clay courts. Was it Rio? I forget which event he won, but again, some serious success last year for Norrie, making a couple of finals, and I think he went final title in his South American clay court stretch. So big for him to get a third-round result at a major under his belt to start this season. Next up for Cam Norrie will be a date with 11th-seeded Casper Ruud. So at least his opponent is also coming off of a 5-set thriller, but ain't going to get any easier for the Brit moving forward. Good win for the 28-year-old here to advance to round number 3. The other side of things on the men's side, because we did have a couple of other good matches, I do want to point out that while those seeds survived, and by the way, Alcaraz, Dimitrov, each earning 4-set victories on the day. Well, actually, you know what? We'll get to that in a little bit. Westhoff, leave all of this in. That happens from time to time. Let me get to my next headline, and then we'll get to the other things that we might have missed. Let's stay glass half full, and stay positive for one more headline. I talked about Pegula having a rough January. You know, 3 players who have had exceptional Januaries: Alina Svitolina, Linda Noskova, and Emma Navarro. Let's start just quickly here with Alina Svitolina. Racks up another straight set victory, 1-3 over Victoria Tomova. Svitolina has been untested through her first 2 matches of play. Straight sets over Preston and Tomova. She's lost just 8 total games. Yes, she's been broken twice in both matches, but never had significant deficits on the scoreboard. Swinging so freely, moving so well right now. Again, she has been back on tour for less than a year. She is as fit as she was when she left the game on maternity leave. And I would argue, I really do think her forehand has a little bit more pace now than it did then. And so, I mean, again, Svitolina, another recipient of things opening. Well, that's not true. They opened up in her draw in the sense that she faces Victoria Golubic in round number 3. It's still a potential Swiatek battle in round number 4. But, man, this Swiatek draw, I mean, Kennan, Collins, now big-hitting Linda Noskova, who, again, Linda Noskova, 3-set victory over McCartney Kessler. That's the nerd-out match you don't think you should go watch the 3-minute highlight package from, but you absolutely should, because Kessler's a real athlete. The former University of Florida All-American. She's got real weapons. When she won that second set 6-1, I thought to myself, oh, my God, she might get through Noskova. Like, she is quick. It feels like the better the opponent, the better the tennis out of Noskova, out of Kessler. And yet, again, Noskova's easy power, the fact that her playbook was so simple to get into, it prevailed. And now, again, you're looking at a couple of players for Linda Noskova, semifinal in Adelaide to start her season. Now, 3rd-round appearance for the first time here in Australia. For Svitolina, finals in Auckland to start her year. Now a 3rd round here in Australia, which she picks up as free points on her resume, as obviously she wasn't playing this time last year. She's up 3 spots back into the top 20, currently sitting at number 20 in the live rankings. Can leap over Garcia with another victory and make a top 15 push if she can somehow get through that Swiatek round 4 test. And certainly with Iga's knee being a little bit banged up, you feel like her chances are a little bit at least more likely than they were to start the event. Again, Linda Noskova, massive 3-set victory for her, and for Noskova, I believe she now consolidates her spot in the top 50. Yeah, the 19-year-old's up to number 38 in the live rankings. That's where she belongs. Like, she is that good. And by the way, 33 is Leylah Fernandez, 34 is Marta Kostyuk, 38 Linda 36 Mira Andreeva, 38 Linda Noskova. 4 players there, all 21 and under, who will all be competing in later rounds of slams throughout the course of their career. Massive moment for Noskova to get over this threshold, get to the 3rd round of a major. A massive moment, obviously, as well for Alina Svitolina to re-cement her place at the top of the rankings. And then, last but certainly not least, shout out to Emma Navarro. Grinds her way to another 3-set victory. Navarro able to earn a 4-6, 6-3, 6-3, come from behind win over Elisabetta Cocciaretto. You look for Emma Navarro now, what she's been able to do in this opening month of the season. Semifinal in Auckland for her to kick off her year. Obviously, after that, able to win her first title in Hobart, now the 3rd round appearance in Australia. She is now 10-1 through 11 matches. 10-1 through 11 matches. First 3rd round at a major in her career, with, as a result, Navarro up to a new career high as well. Obviously, in the live rankings, the 22-year-old currently sitting at 23 in the live rankings. And again, She's played over 90 matches over the last 52 weeks, a lot of them at the ITF level. This January month alone, semifinals of a 250, title at a 250, third round of a major. That's about 4 months of matches from last season she no longer has to worry about. Emma Navarro continuing her rapid ascent towards the top of the women's game. And by the way, she is the favorite. She's got Diana Yastremska, about as ideal of a third-round matchup as you could ask for if you're trying to make your second week of a major now. The power tennis player from Ukraine, qualifier into this event. She was excellent in both of her first two matches, including obviously her win over Vondrousova, and has more experience against top-level competition than Emma Navarro because she didn't play the college game. She went straight to the pros. These are two players 22, 23 years old, pretty similar in age despite vastly different career trajectories. Still, if you're Svitolina, Noskova, Navarro, you walk out of this month, again, all three. Well, Noskova made the final of Adelaide last year, but to defend those points with at least a semifinal run and then to exceed your Australian Open result by making the third round. Svitolina, final third round. Navarro, title, semifinal third round. Three players who are killing the month of January. Three players all alive. And outside of Noskova, who obviously now gets the Swiatek buzzsaw, Svitolina and Navarro favored to advance to week number 2 as well. That's about all they could have asked for to start their 2024 seasons. Last but certainly not least, let's get to the potpourri, as they would say on Jeopardy. The everything else, the anything category, the other things you might have missed. And I will rapid fire through them all here as, again, I try to touch on all 32 matches on the day. Your third and final upset on the women's side. How about Sloane Stephens? 4-6, 6-3, 6-3. She was down an early 4-1 deficit in that opening set, slowly but surely found her rhythm. And then again, for the first time in 5 years, reaches the third round here in Australia with a 3-set victory over Kasatkina. It had been multiple seasons since she'd earned a top 20 hardcourt victory at the majors. And by the way, now with this result, Sloane Stephens up 9 spots. She's back up to number 35 in the live rankings. In the mix, that just, again, this is someone who's played 500 ball for 3 consecutive years, has had to sometimes slip into qualifying, or certainly hasn't been seeded at big events of late. She's put herself in a position to be precisely that. Again, was matched the physicality of Kasatkina, and she just had more juice behind her ground strokes, had more success changing direction than her 14th seeded opponent. As anticipated, the Kasatkina 16th of the draw, 8th of the draw, whatever you want to call it, it is wide open. Blinkova, Paulini, Kalinskaya, Stephens. One of those players is getting into the quarterfinals and will have a potential matchup. By the way, Qin Wen, 54.1% favorite to get to the quarterfinal, to the semifinals. I think I said quarterfinals. I meant semifinals for Qin Wen. 54.1% favorite in that quarter to now make the semifinals. Sloane Stephens is not the favorite. It's actually Paulini and Kalinskaya, which makes sense. They've had more tour-level success of late, but Stephens is into the third round of Australian Open for the 5th time, where, by the way, she's taking on a very much in-form Anna Kalinskaya. I've mentioned this before, but the 25-year-old finals of a 125K in Tampico, then a title in Midland back-to-back to end her year last season. She qualifies into Brisbane, gets a win over Bernarda Pera, round 1 there, qualifies into Adelaide, round 1 win over Krejcikova coming into this event. Now, straight set win over Aranxa Rus to propel her to round 3 of this event, and with the win, Kalinskaya up 14 more spots, back up to number 61 in the live rankings. She's just really solid everywhere. Can play line drive, power tennis. Kudermetova light, I suppose. That would be my comp for Kalinskaya. Maybe a little bit more fluid in the outer thirds, not quite as powerful, but that would be my game style comparison for the 25-year-old who, again, just was able to find the Aranxa Rus backhand successfully enough to not allow Rus to be swinging so freely on her forehand wing. Rus was down 4-1 in that second set, managed to make it a fight and extend things to 5-all, but Kalinskaya break hold to end it. Again, she is through to round number 3, continuing her momentum from the end of last season. I mentioned, again, the Sloane Stephens upset, the Kalinskaya victory as well. How about Qin Wen, who made, of course, that Zhuhai final run at the Elite Trophy event at the end of last season, which features the 9 through 16 players-ish in the rankings. Qin Wen, straight set victory to advance. She gets a 3-3 win over the always testy Katie Boulter. And Katie Boulter was playing well, was holding her ground on the baseline, trying to short hop the heavy topspin balls of Qin Wen, use that topspin to keep her ball within the baseline. Qin Wen too dynamic. She just got Boulter stretched in ways that exposed that Boulter's not the best nor most fluid mover in the corners of the court. She needs to be on that baseline, asserting herself, holding her ground. Qin Wen just didn't let her do it. Qin Wen through to the third round again, sitting at 14 right now in the live rankings, the 21-year-old from China. As I have alluded to, given the injury she had early last season, very much poised to make a top 10 push here in the first third of the season, and is now the favorite to make the semifinals in her quarter of the draw. 54.1%. Half the times you play it out from here, we see Qin Wen in the semifinals, according to the Tennis Abstract singles forecast. I've never known Jeff Sackman to code things incorrectly. Again, a shout-out to Qin Wen, straight set winner on the day. And then, again, Paolini straight sets over Tatiana Maria. Just Maria couldn't hurt her. Paolini disciplined, the firepower excellent. The Italian consolidating the position she earned for herself after a breakout 2023. The 28-year-old Italian currently sitting at 26 career high in the live rankings. And then again, Yastremska, Ocean Doden, your other straight set winners on the day. I do want to talk about the men's side because we did have a few upsets, our most upsets on any given day, I should say. 4 of them here on day number 5. Starts with Arthur Cazaux. He earns the victory of his career. Cazaux knocking out 8th-seeded Holger Rune, 7-6, 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. I mean, again, what was going right for Arthur Cazaux on this day? How about how well the Frenchman moved? To see Cazaux just scoot around the court, the 21-year-old's got serious fluidity. Just that's going to keep him alive in every match that he plays. And again, that fluidity, that springiness, that ability to absorb, redirect pace. He had 51 winners to Rune's 48, 30 unforced errors to Rune's 40, Rune 34 of 53 at the net. And honestly, that's too generous of a number because the biggest difference in this match was Rune felt the need to start pressing. He forced his way into things, forced his way forward prematurely, forced himself into redirecting things down the line when maybe the space wasn't quite there, given, again, how speedy Arthur Cazaux is. Limited breakpoint chances in this match. Rune 1 of 4 on his chances. Cazaux 3 of 8. Again, the margins in this match were thin. Cazaux 18 aces. That was a big difference to Rune's 6. Cazaux winning 82% of his first serve points. Again, Rune was pressing, and Cazaux had answers for it in a way Holger Rune just never seemed willing to find, other than maybe the home stretch of that third set and the passing shot he hits on set point to win that third set. That was certainly special. Apologies, I forgot I had the camera. I got back into podcast mode there. Got to remember to look up. That was for all of our YouTube viewers. I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this. Now I've got distracted by the camera. Again, he pressed. That's just, we can leave it there. Holger Rune didn't have his best tennis. Am I concerned for him moving forward? No, I thought this was a really good performance for an Arthur Cazaux, who obviously outside the top 100 to start this event, Cazaux with the victory, currently sitting at 101 in the live rankings. That's got to sting. Just for, again, you earn your first top 10 win of your career, as Arthur Cazaux does. He's now 3-3 against the top 50 in his career. By the way, this was his first major where he's ever won a match in the main draw. It's only his fourth main draw appearance, at the majors in his career. For what it's worth, though, he has now made the main draw. He's played in the main draw of 3 of the last 4 majors. Wimbledon, the only exception. Cazaux starting to find his rhythm. Again, obviously a really good start to his 2024 season, not just making the third round here in Australia, but for Cazaux to also win a challenger that first week of the year as well. Clear this level is here to stay. The Frenchman, something seems to have clicked physically. He pulls off the biggest upset of day number 5 on the men's side. The only, dare I say, man to actually pull that upset off, not see his lead evaporate into 5 sets. Cazaux, 4-set winner over Holger Rune. Only one straight set match result on all of the 16 singles matches we saw on day 5. That belonged to Nuno Borges. Borges straight sets over Davidovich Fokina. It's the biggest win in the former Mississippi State's All-American's career in reaching the third round of this major. He's up to a new career high, 56 in the live rankings. 26-year-old played 4 years of college tennis. He turned pro 2020, and, again, to see him now inside the top 75 of the live rankings, to see guys like him, Yannick Hanfmann, and even Cam Norrie, who played 3 years, right? I know Ben was only there for 2, but for some of these guys, it might be a slower burn. You see what that level can do for their development. And for Nuno Borges, the problem for him was never striking the ball. It was the physicality, and that element has slowly but surely developed for him. Again, biggest victory of his career. He knocks out Davidovich Fokina. Really impressive stuff. Straight set win as well. He was down a break in set number 1. His kick serve is special. He can slap the forehand anywhere. He's comfortable moving forward. He knows his own limitations. Again, it's the biggest win of Nuno's career. Nuno advancing to round number 3, where a date with Grigor Dimitrov awaits. Your other upsets on the day, how about the Kessman? How much have I said for Miomir Kecmanovic, who I believe made, 4th round quarterfinals the year Djokovic got removed from the draw in 2022. Kecmanovic, maybe his biggest win since, in knocking off Jan-Lennard Struff in a 10-point tiebreaker, to wrap that match. The biggest thing there for Kecmanovic, he had match points that he blew, and then he fights off a couple of match points down 9-7 in that 5th set breaker. I mean, again, for Kecmanovic, talk about the physicality of that final point, a 20-plus shot rally. I don't know what his biggest weapons are, but Kecmanovic is another one of those guys who are good at everything. And look, he's 24 years old. I don't know how much more time there is for him to develop a newfound ceiling, a newfound power tennis element of his game to complement everything else he does do well, but everything else does seem to have a little bit more action behind it, a little bit more pace, a little bit more strength. I think his 3-set win at United Cup to end this, Davis Cup, to end last year, playing as Djokovic's teammate to try and set Djokovic up against Italy, I think that did wonders for his confidence. You kind of see that here, as again, he just was bold down the home stretch when he needed to be in the fight, never wary mentally. Gets him back inside the top 50. He's up 14 spots to number 46 and reaching the third round here. And again, no significant weakness in the Kecmanovic arsenal. It's a fascinating match between he and Tommy Paul in round number 3 because, again, two guys who are pretty well-rounded. No clear-cut weapon. Tommy, the more athletic, definitely a little bit more pace on his ball. Can hit the ball bigger, but Kessman's going to work him if he still has his legs underneath him. So good upset for Kecmanovic. Obviously disappointing losses for both Davidovich Fokina and Struff. Struff had match point. If you're Davidovich Fokina, you are scratching your head. Just, again, maybe that's going to be the continued tone for Davidovich Fokina, who, by the way, is also on my make or break list. I don't know how much faith I can continue to have in his ceiling moving forward. If we just don't, we'll never know what the floor will be week in, week out. And then last but not least, the most notable upset to me on the day, 19-year-old Alex Michelsen, 4-6, 6-3, 6-4, 6-4. He knocks out Yuri Lechechka. Now, it took about 30, 45 minutes, dare I say the entirety of that first set, maybe even a little bit more, as Michelsen went down a break, I believe, in set number 2 to Lechechka, for Michelsen to become accustomed to the speed of Lechechka's, not just serve, but the speed of his +1 shot, the targets he wanted to hit, the heaviness and the depth, the drive behind that Lechechka backhand in particular. Here's the thing. Once Michelsen did find that rhythm, he was the one asserting the terms of play. He is so good on his front foot. The serve is special. He's got one of those shoulders. His momentum is always moving forward in the court. He's always looking for an opportunity to square off a volley, always looking for an opportunity to change direction, make his opponent uncomfortable. If he gets his hands on the ball, again, something special is going to happen. He can just generate that sort of pace. He's got one of those jack sock-like shoulders, even if, again, I'm still not sold on him as a mover yet. The instincts are there so thoroughly. Guy just knows how to win tennis matches. And to see him go from outside the top 500 to flirting with the top 50, Alex Michelsen now 73 in the live rankings, but pretty much no points to defend the next 3 months, and he's 73 in the rankings. to see that sort of ascent in under a year, special teenagers do that, and that's precisely what's happened for Alex Michelsen. He's into the third round now. He's got his toughest test to date as he will take on 6th-seeded Sasha Zverev. Again, so far, 9 of 32 seeds eliminated on the men's side. Only one top 16 seed in Holger Rune, so things pretty steady relatively overall, and that's because, of course, again, all these men keep surviving in 5 sets. Zverev, Ruud, Hurkacz, Medvedev, Norrie, the latest on day number 5 of this event. And then, of course, on the women's side, talked about the Iga match in the emergency podcast. It is worth noting, I forgot Danielle Collins had the opportunity to break Swiatek 4-5-4 in the opening set and perhaps serve for that match. I think she had for that set, she had multiple break points to do so. I mean, again, I went back and rewatched that match, and you forget how helpless Swiatek felt, not only because her forehand was betraying her, but because Collins was playing so well through the first 2.5 sets of that match, and then it just fell apart for Collins. So, again, credit to Iga for continuing her grind. Credit to Ostapenko. She's now won, I believe, 7 consecutive matches. 3-set win over Ayla Tomljanovic, 6-4 in the third. Again, won the first set 6-love. Lost to rhythm there to start set number 2. Tomljanovic protecting her break of serve early in that set throughout the course of that set. Ostapenko just a little bit too much firepower. And again, she's moving as well as she has ever moved. She is through to round number 3. As is Victoria Azarenka. Needed every bit of her firepower to knock out young, big-hitting 21-year-old Clara Tauson. Azarenka 6-4, 3-6, 6-2. She knocks out Tauson. Tauson just not quite fluid, explosive enough, getting to the outer thirds as a mover, nor reactive enough in those outer thirds quite yet. But again, good showing for the day and finally seems to be healthy after that's been her biggest struggle over the course of the past year and a half. And, again, in making the third round, she's back up to 90 in the live rankings. Azarenka with this win, back up to number 32 in the live rankings as she is trying to defend quarterfinal points here this week. Your other 3-set winners on the day, shout out Victoria Golubic, 6-3, 2-6, 6-4. She knocks out a streaky Siniakova. And then, how about Wang Yafan? This was a really fun physical match, level pretty much the entire way. Wang Yafan just had a little bit more juice in the tank. And again, 4-5, 30-40, Raducanu serving. Wang Yafan hits a drop shot. Raducanu's there. She tries to blast a backhand in the face of Wang Yafan. That ball hits the net. Wang Yafan converts the break point. She breaks it to clinch the match. Massive moment for Wang Yafan, who, with this result, by the way, currently sitting now at, I believe, I want to say, let's see, where is she in the live rankings? I lost my spot. 29-year-old's at 77 in the live rankings, up 17 spots as a result of this week. My final stat for you, we have had 96 matches so far on the women's side. 37 of them, over a third, have gone to deciding sets. That doesn't feel extraordinary, but certainly feels like a notable number. And, again, 9 of 32 seeds eliminated on the men's side, 20 of 32 eliminated on the women's side. The men so far, 28 of 96 matches going to 5th sets, but I feel like the number of straight set matches probably under 25 or 30 if you look at the men's draw thus far. That said, the men 14-3, as I alluded to, in 5-set matches so far. And, again, just to finish things up, shout out 19-year-old Jerry Shang. He's into the first round of, I said 19-year-old, I meant 18-year-old Jerry Shang. He is into the third round of a major for the first time in his career, up to a new career high 139 as a result of doing so. Who else did I not mention from a results standpoint? Alcaraz got pushed. Lorenzo Sonego is such an athlete, such a showman. Alcaraz too good down the home stretch. Same thing with Dimitrov. Was too solid with the serve, with the +1. Kokkinakis just didn't have it in the end. The guy I should have spent way more time talking about on this show was Tommy Paul. He was excellent in his 6-2, 3-6, 6-3, 7-5 revenge win over Jack Draper, first in 3 tries that Tommy was able to beat the 22-year-old Brit. He's locked in physically. He's locked in from a focus standpoint, and I think his forehand looks even better than it did at portions of last season. So keep an eye on 14th-seeded Tommy Paul, who next up, again, very winnable match against Miomir Kecmanovic to set up what would be a really fun round 4 against Alcaraz. Obviously, we saw Tommy beat Carlos in Canada, then play a really fun match against him in Cincinnati just last summer. Tommy looked great. Grigor continues to look great. And by the way, he's 6th, according to Tennis Abstract singles forecast. 6th best chance to win this event, just 2.4%. Huge win for Felix Auger-Aliassime. Did he play his best? No. Did he grind his way to victory? Absolutely. And that's the sort of win he needs as he tries to build back up his confidence. 4 sets over Grenier. Good match for Griekspoor. His serve, his forehand, just too much power for 19-year-old, Arthur Fee to overcome. Griekspoor, 4-set win there. Ugo Humbert is a player we don't talk enough about. The lefty, obviously known for his extreme grips, extreme serving position, extreme firepower. He's a heck of a mover as well, and the 25-year-old showed off that fluidity in a 4-set win over the big-hitting Zheng Zhizhen of China. With this win, Humbert back up to his career-high 20 in the live rankings. Heck of a start for the 25-year-old, who has clearly just built himself back up into this sort of player with this sort of confidence moving forward on the ATP Tour. That said, this is our longest episode to date, and it's not because we're also doing this on video. It's because that was your best day to date of the 2024 Australian Open. A day for tennis fans everywhere to remember. Now, if, though, you're ready to start thinking about day number 6, go check out our Great Shot podcast feed where we have a preview not just this day, but every day throughout the course of this 2024 Australian Open. Of course, we will be back tomorrow to recap day number 6 of this event as well. A shout out, as always, to our super producer, Daniel Westoff, for the of an editing job he does day in, day out, making all of our content possible. A shout out as well to the support we get from our dear friends at Tennis Point. Remember, it's tennis-point.com. The promo code is CR15 for all of the latest and greatest products in the tennis world. With that said, for our fantastic super producer, Daniel Westoff, our friends at Tennis Point, from all of us here at both Cracked Racquets and the Tennis Channel Podcast Network, I'm your host, Alex Gruskin. You know what we say, that's the break. We'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.